starten? So, wollen wir mal zur Mikrofonverteilung schreiten. Nummer 1, am besten, wenn Sie das behalten. Okay. Und die anderen?
Ja, wir können auch noch anfangen. Ja, okay.
Wir können anfangen, ne? Wunderbar.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our workshop, the role of Internet exchange points in Internet governance, and thanks for your interest in participating in this workshop. Rather than to make a long speech or introduction, and due to the given time frame, and I think we have a lot of topics to discuss, let's start quickly. Because this is a workshop, I would be very, very happy if all participants would like to engage, ask questions, especially from the remote side, which are warmly welcome as well. Okay, let's start, and I would suggest we make a quick introduction to the panelists. My name is Henning Lesch. I moderate this workshop. I'm working for ECO, that's the German Internet Industry Association. And on my right side, there's Arnold Nipper. Hi, Arnold. May you introduce yourself to our three senses? Would be fine.
Yeah. Do I have to switch it on? No. So I'm Arnold Nippe. I'm founder of DKIX and currently serving DKIX as a CTO, COO. I'm in the internet business since more than 25 years now. And as said, I'm with DKIX with almost 20 years as well. I know nothing but internet. Actually, telling about internet exchange, Martin may confirm it. An internet exchange actually knows nothing about internet. We know something about Ethernet in most cases.
I'm Sam Francis. I'm from the London Internet Exchange, which is one of the world's largest IXPs. We're a not-for-profit, mutually owned and governed by members with about 520 members from 60 countries. So, yeah.
Oh,
Hello. Hello, good morning. Is it working?
It's working.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Loreta Vioiu. I'm from the Council of Europe Internet Governance Unit, where I'm dealing mainly with cooperation. So, as you see today, we are a bit overwhelmed. I'm speaking on behalf of the Council of Europe, overwhelmed by the industry. Moreover, I'm the only woman in the panel. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Martin Levy. I'm from a company called Cloudflare, and we are users of internet exchanges, users around the globe. So I will hopefully take the opposite viewpoint or opposite information point from the internet exchange side that Arnold and the like will talk about. And hopefully that will be useful. As a slight disclosure, I'm actually also on the board of directors of a small internet exchange in the United States. But when I say small, I mean minuscule compared to the two major exchanges that are represented here. But I will not speak from that point today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think you got an impression that we have a really interested panel for this workshop, and the panelists and I we agreed that we won't show slides or make any boring presentations. Anyway, I think it's necessary that we need a common sense and understanding of the basics. The basics or the core question is what is an internet exchange and what's not an internet exchange. As a quick start, then long explanations about what an IX is and what's not. There's an excellent short movie from the EuroDIG, and it tells something about what IX do, what peering is, the role of internet exchanges and these things. It will take us just 3 or 4 minutes, and I think it's a good idea we take a quick look there. So please, let's go.
When you use the internet, what happens? Whether you go online to chat with a friend, or send mail, or buy a book, or check the weather, watch a movie, or study the Peloponnesian War, it feels like there's one wire connecting you directly to the thing you want. But a billion other people are connecting to a billion other things at the same time. How does that happen? It's really about making agreements. Think of networking as a game. It only works if we agree to play by the same rules. Otherwise, it's not much fun. If you could get 2 or more computers to play together, you have a network. If your friend can do it too, there's another network. But if you both agree that your networks will play the same way, now you can hook the 2 together. You have an internetwork. The rules we play by are called the Internet Protocol. And as long as we all agree, we can keep adding more devices and more networks, until the whole world is connected. That's what the internet is, a network of networks that share each other. Every device on the internet has its own unique address. Anything you send via internet is really just a message from one device to another, but it doesn't travel in one big block. It gets pulverized into tiny packets of data, each one wrapped with info about what it is, where it came from, and where it's going. This way, your one message can actually take several different paths to its destination. Then, by following the protocol, the receiving device knows how to put it all back together. The strength of the internet is that it's decentralized. With so many possible connections, there is no single point of failure. If one path gets overloaded or broken, your data just takes a different path. Even if a big chunk of the internet gets wiped out, your message can still find its way. But let's say you use one internet provider and your friend is on a different one. How does your data really get from one network to the other? Some companies make private connections with each other to exchange traffic. But more and more traffic is flowing through shared service platforms we call internet exchange points. An internet exchange is a place where many different organizations come together to interconnect their technology. There may be access providers, broadcasters, publishers, social network sites, telecom operators. Really anybody who relies on network traffic can benefit from the exchange. By connecting in a common place, they save costs, and the traffic between them flows faster and much more efficiently. Traditionally, providers have sold each other passage on their networks. But for some providers who regularly exchange traffic, all that buying and selling gets to be more trouble than it's worth. Many of them saw that if they just agreed to meet each other halfway, then everybody's costs go down and the traffic moves more smoothly. Providers are able to make a single connection to the platform to exchange traffic with many participants. This way of doing things is called peering, and it's making the internet faster and more affordable for everybody. The exchange participants make deals with each other according to mutual benefit, so the peering system tends to regulate itself. It may seem like companies are giving away their services, but in fact, each is providing their part of the whole solution their customers need to most efficiently and reliably exchange traffic. The internet is open, decentralized, and totally neutral. Its intelligence lives at the edge, not in the core. No single organization controls it, and that's why it works as well as it does. By agreeing to cooperate, we all make the internet happen. And that's how the internet happens.
Okay. Yeah, I think we got a common understanding what an IX is. We learned something about the core functions of an IX, and we learned some things about peering and interconnection. And with Sam and Arnold here, we have links and D6, and I saw Bastian from AMSIX here as well. So we have three of the major IXs in the world in this room. I'm very happy to have you here. Some questions. As Internet IXs are part of the core infrastructure of the Internet, backing up the worldwide Internet, what does links and D6 do to ensure that this infrastructure is up and running and resilient?
Yeah. As you all know, the internet started with best effort, and we also did it with DKIX. When I remember 19 years ago, what we installed, it was a small switch. I even don't know if it was a switch. It was still perhaps a hub. So what we found out, it's already more than 10 years ago, we detected that our internet exchange is major part of the networks of our customers, and therefore we decided to go away from the best effort approach to a business approach. That also means what we did is we offered SLAs to our customers, and we really try to run it as a high available platform. That means we do not only have one switch. It looks like the internet exchange or internet exchange point. Most of the people may think it's just a single device. It's not a single device. It's distributed over Frankfurt in different data centers, interconnected via lots of fibers, resilient infrastructure. The devices we are running, these are high available. That means they have a lot of power supply. Even if one power supply is failing, there are still a couple of other power supplies. We get powers from different power stations and so on and so on. So I would say what we do, and not only we, I'm sure Links does the same, I know AMSIX does also the same. This is from a technical point of view, it's a really high available platform where our customers may interconnect to. And we also have to realize that our customers do not rely on a single internet exchange point. So if the connection to a single internet exchange point breaks, our customers always have, or at least should have, another interconnect. What our customers do, and you have seen it from the video, they are peering with other network directly. Most of our customers, if not almost all, also have an upstream. That means if the connection into the internet exchange should break, they still have their upstream where they can load their traffic to. This is what we do to ensure that our infrastructure provides to our customers a really high available service. And from our point of view, nothing is 100%, but from what we hear from our customers are happy with our service, and obviously it's enough for their demands.
Links perhaps has a slightly different perspective in terms of what you might say socially or in terms of governance, in that we don't have SLAs, for example. We rely on our mutual member-governed structure to keep us accountable to members. But at a technical level, it's going to be a very similar story, one that I'm not particularly well placed to tell, not being a network engineer. But for example, in addition to the sort of things that Arnold was talking about for making the network resilient, we also do things like in London we have two different LANs based off different technology to give us a degree of vendor resilience. So there's a problem with the hardware or software of one vendor. Members who are connected to both should be able to reroute over to the other LAN, it being very unlikely that both are going to have problems at the same time. And we also try to provide a degree of what you might call geographical resilience by having recently started creating regional exchanges. So we have an exchange in Edinburgh, one in Manchester, and we're investigating other places within the UK, and doesn't quite fit within the sort of regional idea, but we have one in North, our new Links Nova in North Virginia as well. So that also, again, it's up to networks to make sure they have multiple different ways to get their traffic where it needs to go, but this creates lots of possibilities for them to have that resilience.
Okay, so as we learned, I think an internet exchange is no single point of failure, I think. But I have a question. When we look to different countries, like Germany, we have the D6, like the UK, we have links like in the Netherlands, we have the AMSIX. Is there just room for one IX in a country who's running as a peering platform, or is there room or place for more than one IX?
I think it probably depends on the circumstances of the country. In the UK, there seems to be room for, I mean, Links is not the only internet exchange in the UK. We have IX Leads, who we fully support and have supported both with donation of kit at times and with other forms of kind of soft support. There's LonApp in London. I don't think it's a question that there's necessarily a single answer to. In the UK, it seems like there is, and that's a good thing, I think.
I guess there is not an easy answer to this question. So there is one point of view is an internet exchange. The more participants you have at an internet exchange, the more attractive it is, because if there is already, let's say, 100 participants, then it makes sense to everyone else to connect to, because you are able then to connect to 100 other networks. That means the bigger an internet exchange is, the more attractive it is to other participants to connect into. On the other hand, you could argue the bigger internet exchange is, the greater the impact is when this internet exchange should fail, because then not only 10 connections would fail or 10 networks are impacted, but hundreds or thousands networks would be impacted. You must imagine internet exchanges like Links, AMSIX, or we are not just shipping megabits or gigabits, it's meanwhile terabits. It's really a really awful amount of traffic going through an internet exchange. And therefore I can understand that people argue, say, an internet exchange should not be too large. So maybe for a region, one is not enough, but definitely I would say it does not make sense to have 10 internet exchanges in one metropolitan area. We have seen areas where there were a couple of internet exchanges and there were too many, because you have to have something what we call gravity. And an internet exchange needs gravity to be attractive, otherwise no one will connect to it. So this would be my, let's say, 2 points of view for number of internet exchanges in a region.
Okay. So an internet exchange is like a marketplace to exchange data whatsoever. Martin, you're working for, yes, you have been working for ISPs and working with IXPs for a long time and many years. Can you tell us something about the usage and the values of an IXP for professional users? Why should they or do they use an IX, and what are the benefits for your business?
Yes, thank you. Trying to remember my first internet exchange meeting, and I think it was 1994, which is about the year that, well, it's when Links was created in the UK. AMSIX, I think, is also 20 years old. But there were a few other exchanges that were around ahead of that time. Fast forward, it's more interesting. As a company that generates content to be displayed, to be viewed by end users, by mobile, by broadband providers, by enterprise users, it's vital, as the video talked about, to be able to interconnect networks efficiently, reliably, and, to be honest, cost effectively. And internet exchange points have become one of the key components of getting data to end users in a very efficient manner. The end users, by the way, we've heard a lot of talks over the last day, and we'll continue today. We've talked about various aspects, but there's no getting away from the fact that there is an enormous usage of the internet. That graph is growing. It will continue to grow. It will grow in a mobile world. It will grow in a global environment. It will grow through many different stratas of the economy and people and people and users. That demand has meant that plumbing up the inside of the internet, which is in fact actually what I have been focused on for those last 20 plus years, is a very important aspect of this industry, and not one that's really very well visible. Maybe it shouldn't be to the end user. The end user just wants to use the internet. The internet exchanges, whether we talk about large internet exchanges in large countries or we come down and talk about very small exchanges with maybe only 4 or 5 members in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or or if we go look at small exchanges in Europe, which may only have 10 or 20 or 30 members, which is a order of magnitude less than we talk about in Germany or Amsterdam or in London or other places around major areas in the US or Europe. These exchanges localize and provide value to the content and to the eyeballs that exist inside those countries. And as a player that distributes content and moves data around the internet, those internet exchanges are vital to make sure that we end up with two, and I'm going to talk about the practical aspects of moving traffic that internet exchanges provide. They provide an ability to keep data local. If 10, 20, 30 internet ISPs or telcos connect to an exchange inside a small country, and they then keep their traffic from leaving the borders and simply improving the latency, the amount of time it takes from the creation of a packet to the display of a packet, the end users get a better experience. And by the way, keep in mind that for all intents and purposes in the internet industry, maybe in the content industry, it is those end users paying for their broadband, paying for their mobile, paying for their smartphones, that is the beginning of the, quite frankly, the monetary path that is feeding this internet engine. So those small internet exchanges, those medium internet exchanges, or those exchanges that have global players, such as the ones we've heard from here, all build to improve the ability for those bits to flow. Could we survive without internet exchanges? Not at this point. The amount of traffic we're talking about is it's gargantuan, and it is growing. The hats off to the internet service providers for plumbing up the world, but hats off to the internet exchanges as well for letting that plumbing interconnect between networks in an efficient manner. So the key point I want to throw out here is that the value of internet exchanges, whether they be very large, medium, or small in some remote place on the world, is they provide an ability to keep traffic local. They provide ability for traffic to flow efficiently between networks, and therefore provide the end user with an experience to which they expect. Thanks.
Loretta, I'm very happy to have you here in this workshop. And the Council of Europe has a long record in promoting human rights offline and online. Can you tell us something about recent activities in this area from a policy perspective going on, and what's your experience in the internet age, how technical infrastructure may or may not influence human rights or freedom of expression?
Thank you, Henning, for your question. When you proposed me to be part of this panel, I was thinking, what can I do in this between this technical and industry people? So when I heard the first speaker saying that the internet evolved from the best effort to the business approach, then immediately I was thinking, there we come into this big picture. So I would start by reminding you, I would start with the words of Rebecca McKinnon, which in her first book, Concept of the Networked, the Worldwide Struggle for Internet Freedom, published in January 2012, she said, we cannot assume that the internet will evolve automatically in a direction that is going to be compatible with democracy. It depends on how the technology is structured, governed, and used. Governments and corporations are working actively to shape the internet to fit their own needs. But the most insidious situations arise when both governments and corporations combine their efforts to exercise power over the same people at the same time, in largely unconstrained and unaccountable ways. This is why I argue that if we, the people, do not wake up and fight for the protection of our own rights and interests on the internet, we should not be surprised to wake up one day to find that they have been programmed, legislated, and sold away. So I would start my intervention from here. And we heard very good and interesting briefing on what an internet exchange point is. So for us, it's a place which provides access. In terms of access, so access is the first enabler for us to freedom of expression and to exercise the other human rights on the internet. So therefore it's important, and we would support this kind of initiatives. Henning proposed me to remind you or to bring your attention to our text recently adopted. We are working in a multi-stakeholder approach. And here in this panel, so we do not see all the multi-stakeholders as we would like to see. So therefore I would invite you, the participants in the workshop, to play so the other role, so in your respective role actually, so civil society and internet users, because we, the Council of Europe, put at the center of our policies actually the internet user. We are working to serve the internet user. So we are working with the government to find ways to better protect and respect human rights on internet. In line with this, I would like to announce or inform you that recently, so in April this year, the Council of Europe adopted a guide to human rights for internet users, which was a tremendous work. It's practically a transposition of the European Convention on Human Rights on online environment. It was a tremendous effort which required consultations of all multi-stakeholders, and we happily announced that we have received comments and intervention from more than 30 organizations and business and technical industry on this document. It was a big effort because we practically prepared a recommendation for governments on how to better ensure the respect of human rights on internet. But meantime, the recommendation has an annex which addresses the internet user directly. It is prepared in a very simple language, so it's easy accessible, it's user-friendly, and for professional, for experts, we have prepared as well an explanatory memorandum in which we practically define so the basis of the arguments we put in this recommendation and its annex. It is based on the Convention, and it is based on the European Court of Human Rights case law. It defines 6 main rights, and there we start with access and non-discrimination, actually. So access, it's for us very important. So it allows us to go further, to allow freedom of expression, freedom of association, and the other human rights, privacy, and right to effective remedies. So this is for the start, and I will continue later, so with more intervention. Thank you.
Can I just...
It's wonderful. It's fantastic to hear this, and I've heard it before. But in an internet exchange context, this is a great tick box. Internet exchanges, for all intents and purposes, as actually Arnold started by saying, you know, it's actually not really about the internet; it's about Ethernet. It's about the physical ability. Internet exchanges do nothing but improve on everything that you said. They don't stand in the way of packets being filtered in any way. They are additive. They are always additive to an internet ecosystem without an internet exchange. They take the connectivity from party A to party B and remove an intermediary where traffic may either flow geographically or through an entity that you don't want in the path. They provide one-to-one connectivity. So at every point in the basic mindset of what an internet exchange does, they tick every requirement, as in not applicable or yes, we help that in some way. I talked about bandwidth. But you talked about it from the human rights and from other points of view, and I realized while listening to that, of course, yes, in an internet exchange panel, it's very important to understand, tick mark, we do that. If that makes sense.
Okay, very interesting for the first round. And Loretta reminded me that we have a workshop, so I would like to open the floor for questions from the people participating in this room and all the people jumping in on the remote participation. So, Carsten, could you please give the lady the microphone? Can you please be so kind and say your name and where you're from, please, in advance?
My name is Joanna, and I'm from Poland, and I would like to benefit from this workshop to understand something better. I'm going to start with a simple question and then explain what I mean. You said that there is this problem, human rights, IXPs, you said that not so much, but can IXP be used for filtering, for example, in Democratic Republic of Congo? I mean, we have more and more evidence that IXPs are an important development factor, and that exactly in I don't know, there's not that many IXPs in Africa, for example. I don't know if it's 20 of them. My first question is actually what inhibits the development of IXPs in developing worlds? And then the second is, are there threats that are related to building an IXP in a non-democratic country? Because I don't think we have much problem here with the people in this room, but I don't understand. I'm a beginner in this IXP world, so maybe I could exactly.
Well, they're brilliant questions. They're brilliant questions if you're a beginner. But as a reference point, I'll point you to look at the Axis, AXIS project, Axis 1 and Axis 2, that has been funded by the African Union and has been predominantly executed by the Internet Society. If not a hard search to find these two projects. And that will actually give you a great insight on some of the issues specifically inside Africa. So let's go back and talk about and answer your questions, because they're good ones. Does an internet exchange as a central environment provide a platform to filter or to monitor, which is what you asked? And that's up to the members. For all intents and purposes, as a content play, I voluntarily pay the London Internet Exchange, DKIX in Frankfurt, AMSIX in Amsterdam, and a list of 20, 30, 40 other internet exchanges around the world. As a commercial company, I look at it as a return on investment, but I also have a conscious mindset. If I thought that something awry was happening, whether those exchanges are outside Washington, D.C., or Silicon Valley, or Hong Kong, or Singapore, or Sydney, Australia, or here in Europe, I'd disconnect. It wouldn't be good for my company. Now, there are much more even non-commercial entities, whether they be educational networks like NRENs or global educational networks, or small individual companies who have an amazingly high conscience, and they hold these internet exchanges to a very high standard. The internet exchanges here in the room are membership-based. I have a vote. If I don't like something that the London Internet Exchange is doing, I will stand at the microphone. I've been known to stand at a microphone and say things, and I will vote against it. And this happened a year or a year and a half ago with a particular initiative, and I said, no, not to do with the two subjects you discussed. So from that point of view, at the highest level, there is this great checks and balances. The internet industry, the players, the infrastructure players are very aware of these issues and don't particularly like them. So that's the high-level answer, and it really would take a lot more time to delve into it, but you asked about one country, and you asked about DRC. It's a nascent effort. It's taken a long time, but that last question you asked, which is sort of what barriers are there to generating internet exchanges, it turns out most of the time, when I start looking at harder to reach places, it's the government. It's the policymakers, it's the regulators who fear and worry about this. And without naming names, I'll give you a very simple example. An internet exchange was built in a fairly rich country, but it had a dominant telco player. And it was built by the government, and it was very gold-plated and beautiful and opening ceremonial, and it shut down. And the reason it shut down was because the same department is also responsible for the telco. And they said, hey, this internet, we don't understand this internet exchange thing, but it could eat into our profits. So shut it down. Very short-sighted and very poor mindset. But interestingly enough, if you had removed the government from that and talked to all the individual ISPs, all the individual telcos, they would all benefit from an internet exchange. But because it's a country where there is this implicit requirement for a license before you do anything, the government, the policymakers, the regulatory bodies are involved very early, and therefore these things either take forever or never happen. We don't have that here in Europe. We don't have that in the US. We don't have that in an awful lot of countries. And that is what has made these internet exchanges so successful. And they are measured, I forgot who said this, they're measured by the number of players that connect. The more people connect, the more value they have. So if you go look, and look at the Access project in Africa as one example, but if you go look at this, you will see the balance, but you'll see where there's government control and where there's lack of government control, and that graph matches awfully close to where there is success in internet exchanges, with one, maybe two exceptions, which I'll talk about later.
Okay. Loretta, I think we already shifted or broadened the scope to developing countries, and what is your experience from a policymaker perspective? Or you can jump in.
Because everything sounds so wonderful, but still we have cases of upstream filtering, we have cases of blocking, we have taken down of content. We have a lot of problems related to exercise of human rights on the internet. So in certain countries, and moreover, those practices in certain countries can affect the exercise of human rights in other countries. Like, for example, we have now preoccupation on the cross-border flow of internet traffic, on free cross-border flow of internet traffic. And we have cases of countries like Armenia, which is a landlocked country, so which takes internet from its neighbors, and there are problems there. So everything sounds so wonderful. Then I was thinking, in 2008, the Council of Europe worked together with EuroISPA, which is the European Internet Service Providers Association. We worked together to prepare human rights guidelines for Internet service providers. And there was a commitment there that they are communicated. It is about raising awareness, and it's about respect and promote the human rights. And I wonder how many of the internet service providers mention in their service agreements or in their contract services to internet users that they are bound by these human rights guidelines, so that we prepare together. So I think these are issues that require our attention, and otherwise we wouldn't speak about human rights on the internet. Thank you.
My name is Jens Langmandl. I'm from the Internet Foundation Austria. I have a question following up to what you said. The big internet exchange points are membership-based, and if there is something going on you do not agree with, you can stand up and say no. One thing is, if you alone stand up and say no, it will make not much difference, I suppose. And the more important point is, how can we be sure that there are not things going on that the members do not know? So, for example, when the NSA or its British counterpart makes an agreement with the Internet Exchange Point in London, I'm sure that wouldn't be transparent communicated, so you have no chance to stand up and say no.
It's a minefield of a question. Yeah, your question, let's deal with it on a membership-based internet exchange, and then we can talk about it on a commercial internet exchange. But I'm going to hit this very simply. Membership-based exchanges, even whether they're very large organizations that may employ 10, 20, 30 people, or very small. I'll take the Toronto Internet Exchange as an example. It nearly employs one person. I think it's sitting at 150-ish type members at the present moment in time. You want to go see what it looks like and go check every fiber and see what's going on? Just phone up John and wander over to Toronto and have a look. Do the same in the Sky Tower in Auckland, New Zealand, where the internet exchange that services most of the northern part of the country of New Zealand is based. Been there, done that, posted the pictures of all the equipment on Twitter. Ditto through many internet exchanges around the world. The membership-based exchanges have board of directors that are voted by the members. And I'll argue against the comment that you opened with. I actually do sort of, there's nothing to do with the internet. I do believe in democracy. I do believe in one person standing up and saying no, even if no one else agrees with them. You got to start with one. And then you end up with hopefully 2 and 3, and pretty soon you have an Arlo Guthrie, whole movement on your hands. But the point is, you have in a membership-based exchange the ability to vote a board of directors that oversees what hopefully the non-profit corporation that runs it, which is the case here. So you have that level of checks and balances. Am I saying an absolute answer to you? No, because I can't. But I bet you if you asked to knock on the door and go see what's going on, under most circumstances, if not 99% of circumstances, you pretty much get to see everything, as a member would. So that's only half the answer. The other half of the answer should be answered by the internet exchanges themselves. I'm just giving you the end user and the member and having a vote point of view.
Yeah, so would be interested.
I mean, from Lynx's perspective, I find it hard to envisage that I find it extremely hard to envisage that we would voluntarily cooperate with anything of that sort. If we did, I think we would be, I have a high degree of confidence that the members would use their voice, would use their exit. Whoever made that decision, I'd very much doubt they'd be there for much longer. Okay, what you said about if it's not known. That's a problem for all companies, potentially. There are things like, I suppose, warrant canaries, which are possibilities for those sorts of things. I don't know the legal ins and outs of that. So obviously there's a bit of hand-waving there. But also, even if these things are mandated, so we're not volunteering for them, even if, and again I find this unlikely, but even if such a thing was mandated in UK law, there are an awful lot of networks for which Lynx, for example, isn't their only possible choice. They not only have a choice of internet exchange within the UK, they have a choice of between us, between AMSICs, between DKICs, between a whole range of IXPs that are in different countries with different laws. It would be the fastest way for any government, I think, to sabotage any internet exchanges in their countries if they did that. So I think those are all things which provide pressures that make that not particularly likely, I think.
Because I was just about to ask a question, but you go first.
Hello, my name is Kristo Helasvuo from Electronic Frontier of Finland. I would like to ask you, because you mentioned the gravity-like of nature of the routing between IXPs. So how do you consider, for example, how do you relate to some actors or governments drawing a rather static map of the internet routing globally? So how would you respond to them highlighting the dynamic nature of routing of the traffic between IXPs instead? As I understood, that is the kind of the fact and reality in the BGP protocol and globally. So how to respond to players who claim that the routing is rather static and under someone's control and could be drawn as a map as lines as a roads or traffic and something like that.
Yeah, I think if I understand your question, but it really applies, I think, to internet service providers more than internet exchange points. Internet exchange points are far more like static roundabouts. They exist in one place. They provide the ability to move traffic between multiple players. The type of the question that you're asking is more towards internet service providers to telecoms that route traffic globally amongst many cities or around many continents, and the world of routing is based upon many aspects, whether it be cost, whether it be latency as a method of efficiency, whether it be bandwidth availability, or whether you're routing around a cable breakage, an undersea cable, or that has broken, or maybe a cable that's been dug up in a street. So I don't think it really affects the internet exchanges per se, but I think it affects purely the way traffic routes. And we all hear occasionally. I think there was a story, I want to say actually it affected Armenia actually. I think it was the story about a woman in Georgia who had dug up a fiber cable and taken out either a large amount of the country or a large amount of Armenia. This is an example of a single point of failure which there is no route around. But that is happening less and less as we progress through more and more telco, more and more diversity. So I think your question is more for telcos and internet exchanges. Does that make sense, or am I missing something?
Well, if I try to continue the question that way, that if you consider the global internet governance structures in the future, would you want them to be built so that they secure the freedom for anyone to set up their own IXP and announce their routing through the BGP and other protocols, so that there would be a freedom of setting up an IXP and no one could enforce their own IXPs? Whether they would like to have that.
If I may jump in.
Yeah.
So everyone is able to set up an internet exchange. If you want to do it, do it. But
is there a need to secure that will remain in the future then?
Yeah, it's up to you. So you set up an internet exchange. Next you will have to have is that you have to have parties to connect to you. You see?
Yes, sorry. There's a key point about security. From an internet exchange, so as an end user, not an internet exchange, but as an end user of an exchange, we pay our membership, and you pay twice. You pay once as a member. That's part of that vote and part of that of supporting the organization. And the second thing we pay for is the physical ports that we interconnect with. We pay for them because they cost money. A fiber optic cable, a fiber optic receiver, a space in a rack, power behind that rack. These cost real money. So we pay for that, and that's acceptable. And the more we use, the more we pay, which is also acceptable. So what do I get from the Internet Exchange, and what does the Internet Exchange expect to get from me? Well, I get from the Internet Exchange a reliable fabric that doesn't disappear on me, that it operates and provides the ability, if I send a bit down a fiber optic cable, it will send it to the right location, the right player within that large roundabout, if we use that analogy. What does the Internet Exchange operator expect from me? It expects me to follow certain well-established protocols. These are part of the IP, the TCP IP protocols. They're defined by the IETF, and the reason why I can talk to some random network that I may never have physically met but have swapped an email with and set up a peering session is because we talk the same language. But we also agree to the same set of security controls. And the security in this case means that we will not send an invalid packet. When I chit-chat with that other ISP, we do it with a known protocol. And both of our boxes, both of our hardwares adhere to that. We also agree with the Internet Exchange that if we change our hardware, because there's a certain level of security, they want to make sure our box doesn't send off random packets, that we will inform them and we'll deal with that. And that's all now fairly well managed by Internet Exchange points. So the final part is, you mentioned BGP, and you mentioned this is the protocol that the Internet talks and how it says, I'm over here and I know somebody else is over there. Again, we use filtering, but not in the sense of filtering that we talk about from a human rights point of view, but we talk about like a driver's license. My driver's license says I can ride a motorcycle, and I can drive a motorcycle, I can drive a car. That's my legal, it doesn't say I can drive a bus or a lorry or an airplane. So, in the same way, my protocol, I would go to a common repository and I would record what I'm allowed to talk. And my ISP that I connect with, I would go check their repository and I would say, you can send me route 1 and 2 and 3, but you can't send me 4 or 5. And that filtering, which is a different use of filtering than we used before, is what keeps the internet sane. And yes, occasionally that hiccups. But that's where the underlying world, it's outside of the Internet Exchange purview, but that's what keeps the internet working. That's why we can sit here and look at a web page anywhere in the world. Routing does work.
Thank you. My name is Osman. I'm from Turkey. I think at the end you answered my question. You talked about reliable fabric between those who communicate, but that the reliability of that fabric or mutual agreements, if you change something, informing about that and coming to an agreement, they don't, you said, include human rights issues that Loretta mentioned. Actually, Loretta asked a question to ISPs and IXPs, tell their customers that they are not obliged to go along with, to abide with COE's principles. Do they say that? I think she asked that question. That's not a rhetorical question. It's an important question. Number one. Number two, is it necessary? Number three, how can it be done? Any comments on those? I would appreciate. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any more questions in the room or from the remote participants? Oh, I see one.
Hello, Matthijs van Bergen from the Netherlands, legal advisor. I drafted a report for the Council of Europe on protecting human rights through net neutrality. One thing that is worrying a lot of people in the net neutrality field is the advent of specialized services and QoS-enabled services, assured service quality products. And these prioritized services appear to be interconnectable. Is there a role of IXs to interconnect these kind of separate from the internet services?
Sam, Arnold, anybody over you? An answer?
So actually, what we do is we are currently interconnecting our customers on their demands. So and we currently do not see or have not yet seen customers who say, I want to have implemented different class of services, please provide special queues for it. If there would be demand from customers who say, we want to have different class of services, and there would be a really big demand, I would say, yes, why not? We have to follow the demand.
Well, if that type of demand would be a problem concerning net neutrality, where the capacity of the internet would suffer, or the availability of the internet would suffer due to the advent of specialized services taking over the internet, it could be a problem. But I do see that this would probably, the players to regulate would not necessarily be the X's, but the customers of the X's, the ISPs. So if, limitations on specialized services should probably not be directed on X's, but it is an interesting fact to know, or an interesting thing to know, whether ISPs are actually asking or using for these type of interconnections. And thank you for clarifying that currently it's not the case. So thank you.
Just to add a sentence, so the internet exchange, or at least DKIX, and I'm pretty sure all the others are, we are absolutely neutral. So there is no chance for a single customer that he says me, please prefer my packet or my frame. There's no chance. So we receive the packet, and regardless who the customer is, we will treat all packets the same.
Maybe could we just get a clarification what this statement, which seems very clear, means in relationship to leaving the best effort model behind and going towards SLAs? What does that mean in the context of IXs?
Regarding SLAs, that means what we provide to the customers, say, okay, you can expect that our services, that means basically the port is available, let's say 99.9%. And if we do not meet this criteria, you get money back. Simply like that. No, it's not dropped. Of course, we also have, what we guarantee is you can expect that the packet loss and jitter, round-trip time, and so on through our network or through the, as Martin have called it, switching fabric, is that and that and that. And if we do not meet this criteria, you get money back.
This is all performance parameters related to how quickly packets are delivered and not what's in them or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Regardless of what's within the packet.
Yeah, okay.
And this SLA is for all the customers, you see? And we do exactly what I've said before. We treat each and every packet the same.
Yeah, actually, I think within the United States, quite heated net neutrality conversations in the last year, there has been a statement from some of the major providers, the Google and Facebooks and Microsofts and the like, which has basically said that we have no interest in any form of quality of service style connectivity. We explicitly don't, I mean, most content providers have no interest in this from internet exchanges in any shape, manner, or form. The service level agreement that we want is that there's still light at the end of the fiber and that it still works. It's a very basic service level agreement because we talk through the internet exchange to all the other ISPs. And every one of them says, you still there? Yeah, we're still here. We're still working. Good, let's continue. That chit-chat happens all the time because that's part of the process that keeps all of the connectivity up. That's the first answer to sort of the question you asked. The other aspect of this is, please keep in mind, and if you go look at what's going on in the United States at the moment, which is becoming, okay, personal comment here, a bit of a fiasco. Whenever you bring in the conversation towards broadband customers and the like of the concept of quality of service controls in some way, you end up with executives that will completely make a fool of themselves. So, for example, the language that was used in the last week or so in the United States was when talking about quality, and whether it be, by the way, for over-the-top video or maybe for questionable content that may not match a particular either government or group's interest, they've talked about, well, the slow lane and the fast lane. But of course, the executives hate that. So they come along and say, no, we're talking about a fast lane and a very fast lane. Yeah, no comment. I'll leave the stupidity as is.
Sam.
I mean, I think I'd like to echo what everyone else has said, but and just to say that in any sense of neutrality that I think matters to you, Links is neutral between its members. And also, I mean, as a mutual organisation, we have a strong ethos of staying neutral on topics that there's no consensus about within our membership. And it's kind of in the nature of internet exchanges that they bring together people who will tend to be on opposite sides of this particular debate because they bring together content networks and they bring together access providers and so on. So any internet exchange that strives to remain neutral on that on things that are controversial among its members is probably going to remain neutral on this issue. It's probably not the best target for this debate, to be honest with you, as a piece of infrastructure. Or as an organisation, for that matter. Okay,
we are already running out of time, but I saw there's a question on the side, so we try to bring it in.
Does it work? Okay, it does. Yeah, I'm Karol Mattila, Nordic Telecom rep. Actually, continuing on the net neutrality issue, you said that the internet has evolved from best effort to business approach, and that these commercial agreements make the internet work, and it has evolved through those. And I think these commercial agreements are often also here today referred to as a net neutrality issue or topic. So what's your take on this? Is there something broken that needs to be regulated with net neutrality regulation?
it's a good question to ask internet exchange points. Arnold already has a clear statement saying it.
So I would say the net neutrality is, or we are talking about the net neutrality not because the internet is technically broke, but because it's commercially broke. Yeah. The model, use the internet as much as possible, you pay a flat fee, that does not work. It simply does not work. And now companies are realizing that it's a wrong model. And you have to think about it. Where do you have this model that you can use as much as a resource for a flat fee? Nowhere else.
Okay, we can make just 2 last questions. We have the guy in the corner and this guy there. So and a third question, okay, from the remote participants. Okay, but we're really running out of time.
Just very quickly about the flat fee model. In Canada, there's actually a big problem with where the regulator changed from having the flat fee to paying for what you eat, basically. But because there is a fundamental problem in the amount of competition between access providers, the access providers who also sell competing services that are competing with online services, they make the limits in such an extent that they can remove competition from, for example, online video. So they make the limits of bandwidth so low, or the limits of total gigabytes that you can use per month so low that people are very much disincentivized to use online services instead of their specialized own services. So for me, that would be a big problem. And also you need to take into account that, maybe electricity or gas or these kind of things, they're endless, or they are finite, or they cost money. But routing is not necessarily just. There is also a limit to how much routing can be done, but it's not necessarily the amount of extra money that it costs per bit is not directly transported to the customer. Basically, that's not how I've understood it, at least.
I certainly know that running an internet exchange the size of Links or DKIX or AMSIX is way, way, way more expensive than running a small exchange. So it's directly related to that, to ship the traffic around. And there is a relationship between the amount of traffic and the price. And I completely agree with you. Now we are in a situation where it is not easy to change. Perhaps we should have done it 10 to 15 years ago. We didn't do it. Now I completely agree, it's hard to change this model.
Question from remote participation, basically from Twitter. How much can NSA spy on IXPs? And does it increase latency dramatically, or is it invisible?
Who's taking that first?
So you should ask NSA how much it can spy. So what we heard from Snowden, they spy a lot. But if they spy on IXPs, so I could answer this question for our IXP, yes. I could answer this for our IXP. No, they do not. They do not spy on DKIX.
Sam, something to say?
Who knows what the NSA can do? We do not know anything about the NSA spying on links. As far as we know, it's not happening. I mean, who knows what they can do?
If I may chip in here, I just wonder why that is, because I would say from a governmental point of view, like for a secret service like NSA, GHQC or GCQH or whatever they're called in England, I would say that internet exchange points are a rather natural pick, because other than going to like 30 plus independent service providers, I would find them all there via the backplane of an IXP. But so to some extent at least, yeah. So I just wonder why, you both tell us that you haven't been yet approached by any kind of. I mean, it's a good thing, but I still wonder why agencies like the NSA, for example, do not find internet exchange points as a natural pick.
Because there are easier ways to spy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're already running out of time. To follow up this discussion, in the afternoon there's a plenary. It's called the Rule of Law and ISPs, and I think it's related to the questions about NSA surveillance, human rights, freedom of expression, the question about intermediary liability and all these things. So I would strongly recommend it for you. The panel is called The Rule of Law. Okay, so we're out of time, and I would like to close this workshop. So thanks for all the people here in the room, the remote participants and the panelists for their interest and willingness to participate and contribute to this workshop. Thank you.